Welcome to Buckets from the Tommy John Holmes Studios. I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network. No future J's this week. It's just future J, singular, as Joe Dellera is available. Jim Turvey out this week with one of his many social engagements, so he is unavailable for us tonight. You can catch him over at Roto Grinders. Joe and I are going to go through the NBA Cup tonight. We'll talk about the ifs, ands, and the scenarios for the Cup, about how to bet it. We'll talk about the one game on the slate for Monday, because the NBA is out of its mind and scheduled 13 games on an NFL Sunday, one Knicks Raptors game on Monday, and then the Cup games Tuesday, Wednesday. It would have made a lot more sense to fill in the Monday a little bit more, but I get it because they couldn't schedule anybody because they didn't know who was going to play or not. And so they just kind of did this way. I get it. I just don't love it. I do not enjoy one Knicks Raptors game on the slate, Joe Dellera, despite it being your Knicks.
They really could have done a better job of saying these are the bad teams. Let's at least put all the bad teams on. It's less likely that they advance, and instead we have the Knicks and the Raptors, team that advanced and was one of the favorites.
Right. All right. So let's talk about the NBA Cup. On Tuesday, you're going to get Magic versus the Bucks. No Franz Wagner, as he is now out with an oblique injury alongside Paolo Banchero. There's been no indication that Paolo is going to be ready to play. I do not expect him to be ready to play in this one. Line move from Bucks -5 to Magic plus 9.5 now. So Bucks are now -9. And in the late game, the Mavericks take on the Thunder in a Western Conference semifinals rematch. Phenomenal game. Thunder are 5-point favorites. Totals 226.5. On the Wednesday slate, the Knicks are 8-point favorites versus the Atlanta Hawks. There's an 8.5 in the market at FanDuel. Total 232.5. And the Warriors take on the Rockets. Another great game. Rockets are -2.5. There's a 3.5 in the market at Bet Rivers as well, if that's your fancy on the Warriors. So Joe, I think there's a couple ways to kind of look at it. We can take a big picture step back approach, or we can do this game by game. Which one do you kind of want to do?
I think that from a big picture perspective, it might help us narrow down some of the games that maybe we need to talk about a little bit more, because I think that obviously the Franz injury was huge, because Orlando was a team that you said they're pretty live, and it looked like the Eastern Conference, it was the Knicks got a pretty decent break, not coming in first, getting the Hawks. As good as the Hawks have beaten some very good teams, but you have to say, based on all the advanced metrics, they're the worst team in the entire knockout stage of the NBA Cup
by far.
Orlando's been feisty, so that was an interesting spot, and now that's gone now. I don't have a ton of faith in Orlando with what they have, so I think big picture maybe makes a little bit more sense right now, and then we can figure out how which games we think matter the most.
Okay, so the market for the futures odds: Thunder are the favorite at -280 at FanDuel. Knicks are plus 310. Knicks are -300 at DraftKings. And the Thunder are all the way down at plus 370. So there's a plus 280 at FanDuel and a plus 370 at DraftKings. That shows you the market differential on this. Bucks plus 450 at FanDuel and plus 360 at DraftKings. Rockets are 7-1. Mavericks 750. Warriors 850. Magic the longest here, obviously, at poor Magic at 24-1 now. They're behind the Hawks over at FanDuel. They are behind the Hawks over at DraftKings as well at 35-1. So if you like the plucky Magic without two of their two best players to make a run here to win, if they win 2 games, you've got a 35-1 ticket. Not bad, but I can't, in all honesty, recommend it. One thing I wanted to bring up to you that I think is an interesting way to frame this. So last year, the Pacers took out the Celtics and the Bucks, and they make the finals.
Yeah.
The Lakers go through a much tougher schedule in group play, go through much tougher, but the Pelicans were rolling at that point, and they embarrassed them. And they wind up making the finals, and they win the whole thing. I'm not saying that you should just blindly bet the Western Conference, but given that this is literally an SEC opponent versus a Big 12 opponent, this is an SEC Big 12 bowl game, is what the finals are. doesn't the value have to be on the West just because by transitive property they have to be better because all of the West teams are better than most of the East teams?
Yeah, I think if you could bet, West versus East, like who's going to win and just pick the conference, sure. But I think that when we look at the market, right, like the Knicks and the Bucks should win. I think that on the Western Conference side, the matchups are harder. So it's like you really don't know who is going to get through, right? Whereas in like at least even the first game, like I don't know necessarily if Oklahoma City is going to beat Dallas. I don't know if Golden State or Houston is going to beat you. Like I'm not 100% sure on like who's going to win. Like if you told me any of those teams advance to the finals, I would say, "All right, yeah, makes sense. That's fine." Whereas on the East, if you told me anybody besides the Knicks and the Bucks advance to the finals, I'd be shocked, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like what this kind of looks like. What does what does the Magic make in the finals look like? Like they just play insane defense. The other team chokes up and has too good of a time in Vegas. Like, I'm not going to be. I'll go ahead and get ahead of this. Like, I have the Knicks to advance, right?
Yeah.
Like they should win. Obviously, they're 9.5 point favorites. Like, how do I not have the Knicks to advance here? But like, is that going to stun me? No, because the Knicks defense is really shaky. It's getting better,
yeah,
but it's still really shaky. The problem is just like, whomst for Orlando is going to score?
Yeah,
like Suggs, Anthony Black,
Batazde,
yeah,
like
Goga?
like that's it. They got nobody. I mean, they're beating Phoenix right now, like when we're recording, but Phoenix is also without Durant and Nurkic, and like they've turned the ball over. It's late in the fourth quarter. They turned the ball over 21 times. Right. So like that's how they win. And I mean, when you're facing these other offenses in Milwaukee and in New York that are realistically, they got a little bit more firepower than just Devin Booker, basically. You're not going to win that way. It's hard, like you could, but you're kind of cutting it pretty narrow. I mean, I think it's tough to say that Orlando would be able to advance. I think I would have, if I had to pick between the two, I think I would have to say Atlanta has a better chance at advancing just because of where their offensive ceiling is. They could outscore pretty much anybody on any day just because you have a guy like Trae Young leading the team on any given night.
Right. And so that's the problem is there's a higher likelihood if you take a future on a Western Conference team that they get upset because they're facing tougher opponents.
Yeah.
But also they're much more likely to win the final because they're not all better teams. I have the Knicks ranked really high. Like in power ratings, I have New York as currently the 4th best team in the league. Like I have them very strongly rated. They're 6.4 points better than an average team on neutral.
Yeah.
And all 3 of the teams that they are going to, or 2 of the 3 teams above them are not in the tournament. OKC is the only team that's in.
Yeah.
So let's kind of narrow down here and let's go to this Bucks game. Like Bucks, you already have a bet, so I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about this.
Yeah, because I give out Bucks -5 as soon as the Franz news broke, and I logged in the Action app, and I was like, this is insane because they were hanging the number out at Bet365. Sometimes they leave out numbers, and we take advantage as much as we can. But I got it on FanDuel right away, and then Bet365 was still hanging the -5, and then even when they took off the -5. What happens is too, the NBA Cup has been, I think, absolutely brutal for these books to price. It's been brutal for them to react to because we've even seen where normally it's like somebody gets hurt, they'll pull every single futures market down. They pull everything down. NBA Cup, you could still get Milwaukee at +200 to advance to the final. So, even after they pulled the game odds down. So there's to me, I grabbed Milwaukee -5. I think that they should win. I'm totally cool with grabbing Magic +9, Magic +9.5, and shooting for realistically a 4.5 point middle. I think that that's a pretty advantageous position to be in, and you're locking in some solid CLV no matter how you cut it. I was like, when Franz went out, I knew for a fact, I was like, this line is going to move dramatically. And as we've talked about on this podcast before, this is the definition of a cluster injury, where you don't have Paolo, you don't have Franz, and now it's like, are we going to have Jalen Suggs go and win us this game and go and win us these games in the NBA Cup? As good as Suggs is, as much as we like Suggs, I think that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, me too. So for those that didn't grab your 5 though, like, what's your lean here on?
I think
Bucks -9.
I think you have to look at it and say, okay, well, even if I don't want to grab the Bucks here, right? I think that they're obviously very likely to advance. I think that there's still a little bit of like meat on the bone at Giannis plus 550 to be the Cup MVP, because I'm assuming that they're going to win, and then you have to get through New York, and then you have to win in the final. Whoever they play in the final, because you have Oklahoma City, Dallas, Golden State, and Houston, I don't think that any of those teams have anybody that's remotely capable of covering Giannis. Like, I think maybe, do you think the best person is Tari Eason on the Rockets? Is he the best?
The key is it's not about one guy.
Yeah.
The question is, do you have a good enough system that is layered well enough to have the first guy drive him inside, the second guy come over for the charge?
Yeah.
Like, you have to funnel him into the charge. That's what Nick Nurse's teams do really well.
Yeah.
Is they funnel him into the charge. I think that the Rockets can do that, and I think the Mavericks can do that. I don't think the Thunder can do that.
Yeah. I mean, they have Hartenstein, which is helpful now, but like, that's not super helpful. Like,
yeah, I don't love that matchup. I don't love that matchup in particular. No. So, and Golden State's like a weird one, especially with Draymond going to the bench. Like, I have no idea.
I don't know what's going on there.
It's like, yeah, and so it's like, all right, is it going to be, I guess, like, does Wiggins start on him? Do you do Kuminga defending him, and then Kuminga picks up like 3 fouls immediately? I don't like the Warriors.
It's not good. And honestly, too, I'm shopping this a little bit as we're talking, but Giannis, there's a 7-1 at FanDuel for Cup MVP. Like, I just think that number is too long. I know that it could go to Dame, but I'm willing to kind of sacrifice the difference between like the plus 450 on Milwaukee and 7-1 on Giannis, just the way he's been playing.
I think the key here is that Dame may have more points than him in the final, but he's not going to have more rebounds and assists. Like, there's no scenario in which Dame has more PRA over the 3 games.
He'd have to score like 50.
Right.
Yeah.
I have the Giannis ticket. I will say that right now, with where the bracket is, I don't necessarily want that at that number right now. I'd rather, like, I like where I'm at. Like, I've given that out on the show.
Yep.
I want to be able to play against it. And the reason for that is, by the way, I'm going to lay the 9 with the Bucks.
That's fair.
I have this 11 without Franz. So
yeah,
the baseline for the Bucks offense is just so much higher. It's just so much, like, there's just not, the Bucks can definitely screw this up, but if the Bucks play a normal game, which, to be fair, they often do not. They didn't on Sunday versus the Nets. But if they play a normal game, this is probably 13-15.
Yeah.
In related news, I am also going chalk with the Knicks. So Knicks are 8-point favorites versus the Hawks on Wednesday's matchup, and I haven't done the adjustments for Sunday night's matchups yet to power rating, but one of the reasons I've been like so irritated with the Hawks 6-game winning streak is like my numbers keep spitting out like, no, they're awful.
Yeah.
No, like they are garbage, and they got completely destroyed by a Nuggets team that lost to the Wizards on the first night of a back-to-back and was spiraling, and we're at home, and they just got destroyed. I will go ahead and say what this power rating is. I don't like this isn't like, I'm not betting it to this number. I'm just telling you what the numbers say for me. I have Knicks minus 18 in this game.
Oh boy.
Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, every like, all the stuff that I focus on is like, yeah, the Hawks are garbage. Like, they're not good. Like, Dyson Daniels is great, but the Hawks collectively, like Clint, and also it's like if we get in the matchup stuff, let's disregard my power rating. Let's just throw that out the door. Clint Capella is going to have to go guard Karl Anthony Towns in pick and pop situations. He can't go out there. He never can go out there. No. Like that's not what Clint does. He's going to give him that space. So Cat's going to eat. They're going to play drop coverage versus Jalen Brunson. Guess what? Jalen's going to eat. They're going to have to help in from the wings. They're going to get beaten up that way. DeAndre Hunter suffered what is probably a concussion tonight in the Nuggets game. He got hit in the head. So there's a big chance that he's out, and which means, guess what? More chance for OG Anunoby to play bully ball. Like, there is, to me, I don't know what a Knicks... It's Dyson Daniels turns them over 15 times. And Trey does, like... I know the Trey stuff. This team is just so far away from the Knicks team that lost to the Hawks. Like, it's just a very different... Like, you didn't have Jalen Brunson. You didn't have Karl Anthony Towns. Like, it's a completely different squad. Atlanta's offense is good, not great. Their defense is not good, not terrible. And I can't see any way in which the Hawks hang in this game. I like Knicks by double digits here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, the Hawks beat the Knicks earlier in the season, 121 to 116. To me, like the Knicks really went through it to start the season. Like they were going through some growing pains. You could tell that like they just weren't like a super cohesive unit. Like they didn't know like where everybody's like what responsibilities were. Nobody knew like how the offense should look. Nobody knew how the offense should really run. They didn't have Precious Achiuwa for that game. So not that is a super big issue, but it does affect what they can do because when they play Achiuwa, they play a lot more switch instead of drop. So it does give you a little bit of a different opportunity or a different look defensively. I think that for this game, Towns is super live. I think that he's a terrible matchup for Atlanta. And he scored 34 points and had 16 rebounds against them in that loss. So the Knicks are going to play as many minutes as they possibly can in this game. And I think they're going to win. I think that Cat should probably have a pretty big game. I think that our Cat ticket at that 100-1 number is still pretty live to be MVP.
It is.
Like, I think it's pretty live. He's down to 10-1. I'm seeing. Like, I don't mind trying to hedge it a little bit with like a little bit of a Brunson angle, but like I'm really comfortable with this position. Like I don't want the Knicks, like it's kind of a funny thing. I'm like I don't want the Knicks to win and we don't win anything because we only have a Cat position, and that's kind of why I'm saying maybe buy a little bit of a Brunson spot. But he's been awesome, and I think that he's got a great matchup in the prospective matchups that I'm looking at. Like, I think that he's played very well against the Hawks so far this season, and he also played well against the Bucks this season, where he scored, what did he score? He scored 32 points against Milwaukee, too. So he scored 34 points against Atlanta, 32 points against Milwaukee, and then you're going to get a Western Conference matchup where none of the bigs, like, super match up great with him, I don't think.
Agree. There's not like I think there's the Warriors match up well with them.
Yeah.
The Rockets will in certain lineup, like those second unit lineups where he usually kills teams.
Not the Şengün lineups, yeah.
Right. But the other ones they'll match up pretty well with them. Dallas will leave him wide open. They'll just leave him like very, very open. Brunson right now is plus 550. I will probably add that because I did begrudgingly add the Cat position after we talked about it. I was like, it's too good. So now I have
gives you a good number.
I have Cat and Giannis at these ridiculous numbers, so I can start being like, okay, let's make sure that we cover. Like, I'm not betting Trae Young, and I'm not going to bet like Goga Bitadze. But
we did talk about Trae Young here, though. We talked about that 110-1.
I will be so annoyed. I'll be so mad. Jim will be insufferable. I will not be on this podcast next week if that happens. Let's talk about the West. So Mavericks Thunder. This one is interesting because it's my numbers have been 50. I'm at 55% ish success rate on the season. That's more than good enough for me to be profitable. It's been a big reason why I've had a really good start to the year. I do make this 6 on neutral. Like I make this 6. Actually, I'm sorry, that's with home court. So let me see what that looks like otherwise. Yeah,
Well,
I make this right on the dot. I make this 5.5, which is it's 5 right now in the market. So I have like a slight lean to OKC,
yeah.
very slight. But I will tell you, like right now, I have bet the Dallas Mavericks plus 176 on the money line. So give me your thoughts on it. I'll tell you why I'm on Mavs money line.
This does seem to be a spot, given the playoffs last year, where you look at it and you go, is Oklahoma City going to get over the hump? Because
Right.
Dallas beat them. And Luka, the one thing for me with Dallas is Luka looks great right now, probably because he was just off for the last like 2.5 weeks. And he's got a couple games under his belt before this game comes. He looks pretty healthy. He looks pretty spry. That's exactly the type of thing that you want in this type of matchup. So I like that. And to me, like, I think that these teams are a lot closer in terms of the talent that they have than I think it's, than like the way that the standings even are, where Oklahoma City has just been obviously tremendous this entire year. I, I would want to grab the points with Dallas. I know Oklahoma City is number 1 in adjusted net. Dallas is still number 4, and that was missing Luka, like missing different players for pretty decent chunks of the season.
Yep.
5 points with Dallas to me, I think is just a little too much, given the fact that we can talk as like, I think there's a good conversation to be had regarding Shea versus Luka in terms of maybe who's better, who's MVP, whatever. I've seen it just too many times where Luka in a winner take all type of game just rams it down the other team's throat.
Yeah. He is a stone cold killer. And like, I think Shea's built equally. Like, he was really great in their game 6 last year.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't on Shea in that game. But I do think Dallas presents problems with their ability to deter at the rim. OKC's offense has not been as good as last year. They're not shooting as well. So if you're telling me last year in the playoff matchup, OKC couldn't hit the shots that they needed to, and Dallas did, and OKC's offense isn't as good as last year, why do I have any sort of indication that they're going to be able to do it this year? PJ Washington was an absolute killer in that series, and I do have a wonderful translation of why. So PJ's from Texas. Okay, went to Dallas Prep.
Yeah.
He went to Kentucky for college, but it's Texas OU. That's this. It's OKC's basically Norman.
Yeah.
And so, like, he always kills OKC.
He's going to get up for that game.
And he's in a really good spot. So, all that said, I think that Dallas gets it done here. I like Dallas plus 176 to upset the Thunder in the Western Conference semifinal.
Yeah, it keeps me basically from wanting to add positions, because I would love to grab a Shea position, or even honestly like a Luka position. And I think the Luka position is maybe the way that I would want to go, because it's almost like a natural like alt line for this Mavericks team. Like, if you like them on the money line, like, I think that I would probably like Dallas against either Houston or Golden State. I think I honestly would like either team out of this part of the bracket against Houston or Golden State. But at the same time, this matchup is so tough. It's really like, it's 2 of the best teams in the Western Conference. I don't want to grab one of those future spots.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the ones in the league. I grabbed the other day, and it's in the Action Network app. 11-1 is what
That's a good number.
Luka's MVP was at.
Yeah.
And that was just ridiculously dumb. Like, it was a way off line. He's now 8-1 at FanDuel, and he's still 12-1. I'm gonna bet it again right now as we're talking.
12-1 is probably a good number. Yeah,
he's 12-1 at DraftKings. Because now we'll do the semifinals. I like the Rockets to get past the Warriors.
Same.
I think, like, just short form here. Rockets are at home. Golden State, I wrote about them for SB Nation. They don't know who they are right now. That's why they're benching Draymond.
Yeah.
Here's what Kerr has done this season. He has messed with the starting lineup 4 times. He went to a 12-man rotation. He cut it back down. Curry said that he needed to play a tighter rotation. Then it was like, we got to figure out and try some stuff to figure out what's as good as their record is because of that early win streak, the team knows they're not good enough. And they're so heavily invested in the trade market. Like every executive's like, yeah, Golden State is out there looking for upgrades still. It's because they know that like they can kind of piece things together, but you can't get through a season like that. It's playing whack-a-mole. And they keep doing it. I don't think Kuminga fits really well with Curry. I do not like the move of him into the starting unit. He may work in the immediate. They may win the cup because of Kuminga, right? Possibly. Yeah. But I don't love it for like the long term. And with a team that's kind of in a little bit of disarray, going on the road to Houston, who's coming off this road trip but coming back for the cup to host a game, I really like the Rockets -2.5 versus the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm 100% in alignment with you here. The other thing is too, Golden State, talking about the trade market, they said Podziemski was untouchable because they thought Podziemski was going to be incredible this season, and he really doesn't. He didn't take the leap that they thought. I think they thought he was going to. The 3-point numbers regressed, and the best part about his game, honestly, is the rebounding. But you're not doing that when you're on the court with like Draymond Green, Kuminga, like whatever, like even Curry, because stylistically, the Warriors want Curry to get a lot of offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds rather to kickstart the transition a little bit. So it is a little bit interesting there. I will say, one thing that I will look for in this game, I'm curious to see, speaking of the rebounds, is Curry first quarter rebounds, because they generally in the postseason, I would imagine that they treat it like not like a postseason game, but close, right? The Warriors have changed their rotations, and they usually run Curry like the entire first quarter. When he plays the entire first quarter, they usually set his rebound line at like 1.5. Love the spot. Like if you can grab a 1.5 first quarter rebounds for Curry, it's a great spot because the Warriors like to getting those rebounds and kickstarting the transition like right away, putting a lot of pressure on like Houston immediately. Maybe because there's always the threat of him just pulling up, taking a three, like whatever it is, getting the ball in his hands because it lets them get into transition just a little bit faster. So that's definitely a prop I'm going to be looking for in that game, is like a Curry over 1.5 first quarter rebounds.
Okay,
for a deep
great
cut.
Look there.
Deep cut.
Yeah, deep cut, but I like it. So in the semifinals, I like the Knicks over the Bucks. I have the Knicks favored by about 1.5. It's gonna be tight.
Yeah,
but Milwaukee's a little bit more inconsistent than New York has been, because New York basically had like the terrible start and then figured out who they are and have been that. The over is going to have to be absolutely like ridiculous.
It's going to be insane
in this game, which is I'm going to be on the under because I only have this projected at 224.
Okay.
So I'm going to be on the under in it because this is going to be like 235 or more. I feel like, because of the amount of offense that's in there and the way the defenses are. But in particular, look, I get Brook Lopez in drop coverage versus Jalen Brunson, and I'm going to take that all day long. Like I'm just going to take. And now it's Dame versus Cat. Don't love that. Don't enjoy that matchup for New York. But I think the collective strength and identity of the Knicks is still stronger than the Bucks. So I will take the New York Knicks to win this game and advance to the finals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm trying not to be a homer, but I do think it's a good matchup. I think that the pluses for New York are higher because like their best players have the best matchups, I think. Right. Whereas like Giannis always kind of wins whatever matchup he's in. But if you had to pick people to put on Giannis, it like a combination of OG Anunoby and Josh Hart isn't the worst thing in the world. So I'll take that against Giannis as much as I can. And I will. The one question I had for you, because when we've talked about the Cup, and last year when we talked about the Cup and the Lakers were in it, they were advancing, whatever. The conversation was that the Lakers were essentially a home team in Vegas. Yep. Who is the home team right now?
If Golden State makes it, it's Golden State.
Yeah.
If Golden State does not make it, if it's based off of what we think,
maybe nobody.
I mean, I imagine the Knicks, just because like there's more Knicks fans generally, right? So there's there's going to be more Knicks fans in Vegas because the New York Vegas transplants can be higher than Milwaukee, Houston, or Dallas.
Yeah.
Right? It's not OKC. I'll tell you that right now. It's not OKC.
No, it's not OKC.
So like the Knicks are like the closest to having a home court advantage.
Yeah.
The fans will be more going for the Knicks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I guess we'll know if they advance and if they play like a Milwaukee or like honestly anybody in the East, I guess we'll have an idea, because then that maybe dictates a little bit of what we think about the final in terms of like which team's fans are going to be there.
Right. And then in the Western Conference, I like Mavs over Rockets. I have Mavs -3, a little bit over -3 in this game, 3-point favorite. It's Houston's tough, but I'll take Luka, Kyrie, and a really good defense at the rim versus the Rockets' mediocre offense. Dylan Brooks will, do something ridiculous. I will say, in terms of maturity, I actually like Houston a little bit more here. Don't love the idea of Luka in Vegas overnight. Don't love that. Him hanging out in Vegas for a few days does not make me happy. But you also, on the flip side, like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Amen Thompson, Reed Shep, like it's a bunch of young guys, and Dylan hanging out in Vegas for like a long time. Fred VanVleet will be the adult in the room, but I just don't know, and I just don't know if I can trust either squad there. I trust Dallas more, and Luka can be hung over and still put up 40, 15, and 5. So I'll grab. I will like the Mavericks over the Rockets, and then we get to a final of the Knicks and the Mavericks,
which is fun.
I like Dallas. Who do you like?
I mean, it's going to be tough for me to say I don't like the Knicks here, but I think that it's always just tough when you have Luka, because Luka's always the best, like almost always the best player on the court.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it's going to depend on the line. I do think though that we would be in a great position because we have that cat ticket. Like,
right.
I would be looking at this and saying, all right, I'm probably going to hammer Dallas. If it's Knicks Dallas, I'm probably going to hammer Dallas because I know I'm going to have a Brunson ticket and I have a cat ticket. And like, I'm looking to hedge that cat ticket like pretty hard. But Cat also has an exceptional matchup in that spot because of the way they just don't cover you. They just don't cover stretch bigs. They just don't do it. Yep. So if they can, I think the thing would be in that matchup is Luka always is going to bend every defense, but you have OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart to throw at him. With the Knicks, if they can bend the Dallas defense and then Dallas goes, well, we have to address Karl Anthony Towns, that's going to totally throw their thing completely out of whack between Gafford and Lively, who both have a little bit of a propensity to get into foul trouble. That could really swing things for New York. So I'd be curious to see what the line is, honestly, and that might dictate kind of what I do.
Do you know what I'm going to want there is Maxi Kleber overs.
Yeah, he's the perfect option to play because he can switch a little bit. He can do a little bit of everything.
Because you know what they're going to do is they're going to put Kleber on Cat at the power forward spot, and they're going to have I guess OG is.
It's like kind of like they're kind of all the four, right? Like it's like Josh Hart and OG are kind of the four.
They'll put Lively on Hart.
Yeah, because Hart doesn't really shoot as much. Yeah,
right. That's what they'll do. So I still like that matchup for Dallas. I'll just be honest with you. I still like it for Dallas. It's also like, this is why I didn't want the Cat 100-1 ticket. I took it because you guys made a really good case for it. And I was like, I have to bet this. And now I'm glad I did. But like, it's Karl Anthony Towns in like a high pressure, high visibility spot.
Yeah. So we'll find out. But
not great. The other thing here I would say is the Knicks are second in schedule adjusted offense. The Mavericks are fourth. So there's a 2-spot gap there. The Knicks are 15th in schedule adjusted defense. The Mavericks are 8th. There's a 7-spot gap there.
That's the problem. Is the defense.
So like Dallas is just like they're a better team.
Yeah.
Now I will say this is 4 and 5 in schedule adjusted net rating at dunks and threes. Like this is 4 versus 5. But the gap between Dallas and the Knicks is a lot wider than it is between Dallas and third, which is Cleveland. So I'll take the Mavericks here and Luka. Kyrie is the one that I'm kind of like, this might be a problem. So I might look at adding him a little bit to the other tickets I've got, as well as betting Luka again. But I think your Mavericks are going to be your 2025 2024 rather NBA Cup champions. Joe likes the Knicks
Per usual.
per usual. 82-0, right? All right, let's do best bets for the one fucking game we have on Monday. The Toronto Raptors taking on the New York Knicks. Joe's New York Knicks. The Knicks are 5.5-point road favorites. Raptors, the total 229.5. There's a +6 out there if you like Toronto. Joe, give me your props. What's the best bet for this game?
I think you have to take, this is more of a lean for me, but I think you have to take the Raptors. To me, this is a clear look ahead spot for New York.
Yeah.
They sat Karl Anthony Towns in the last game. They kind of got destroyed by the Pistons, which is not a great look, right? But Cat was on the report, sat. Brunson was also on the report, played. I really like. My concern here with this game is honestly that the Knicks are going to sit almost like all their important players except for Bridges and just be healthy for this cup game. They're going to have a couple extra days to be off. I don't know how much they like. I think they care about every regular season game because it's Tibbs, but at the same time, Tibbs winning the NBA Cup would be like a pretty big thing for him in his career. It'd be honestly one of the bigger things for New York basketball in a long time. So I do wonder if they kind of prioritize that. And then honestly, even if these guys do play, I just think it's a look ahead spot where you're just not going to be super prepared. It's a road game. You're going back to New York to prep to play in the cup game. I have some concerns about how prepared New York is going to be in this spot.
New York has to go to Toronto and then, assuming they win, Vegas inside of a week. What a great week for them.
A lot of fun.
It's a good time. So I will disagree a little bit. I have to, just based off power rating. I have this 12. Let's say that Jalen and Cat both miss. In pure spread value, I have that as worth 7 points, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
If I take that away, we're at 5.5. But the line's going to move dramatically south too. So what I'm saying is, like, after they move it back to like 3 or 2 here, I'm still going to like New York because they're just so much better than the Raptors. I get the look ahead spot. It's a good cap, honestly. I probably won't. I'll see. If Jalen and Cat play, I will be forced into playing the Knicks. If they don't, I don't necessarily know that I need it in a look ahead spot. What I do like in this game, though, what I really do, my best bet for this game is going to be the under 229.5. I've got it. There's a 231.5 at BetMGM, which I'm betting right now as we record this. So, one, Raptors offense really not as good as maybe like you think it is. They are 22nd in overall offense. Their defense is 22nd, which is good, but not good, but it's not bottom 5, right? That's about the kindest thing you can kind of say about it. One of the weird things, though, is they take a long time on defensive time. They are 25th in defensive length of possession per dunks and threes. So they actually take quite a while. They make you like go through the whole thing. And then on the flip side of that is the Knicks, who are 17th, and they're 27th in offensive length of possession. Like, they're patient. Like, they're very, very patient. I think this is a slower paced game. I don't think they get out and run. I think that the Knicks hang back a little bit because they are saving their legs for Vegas. And I will take the under at 231.5 here, Joe.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The one player that I would target, and I think I'll grab it as soon as I get props, is I'm going to want Miles McBride, because I think that matchup wise, I think it's okay for him. Regardless, I'm not super confident in really anybody that Toronto's going to throw at him defensively. But in the event that it's either A, Brunson sits, McBride's going to go bonkers. In the event that it's a blowout, one way or the, like, if the Knicks play everybody, then maybe you have a blowout and then McBride gets a little bit of extra run. But I mean, the guy is playing significant minutes out of, like, as the sixth man for the New York Knicks. And I think that there's plenty of opportunities for him to see like a little bit of an extra spike in his minutes. So I'm curious to see where the number comes out. I would imagine his points line is around 10.5. And I think that's going to be a spot that I'm going to want. Maybe a points plus assists. I think it would probably be about 12.5 or 13.5. That might be something that I want too. And I'd want it early, just in the event that, Brunson or Cat or somebody else is on the report and they actually don't play. The one player that will play is Mikal Bridges, because he's got that streak going. See, if the Knicks rule out everybody, I wouldn't be shocked to see one of those scenarios where Bridges does the Iron Man thing and plays the first quarter and then sits.
Okay. So maybe take an under.
Yeah.
In that situation. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like it very much. All right. That's going to do it for buckets. Joe's got to lean on the Raptors. I'll take the under 231.5. We gave you our cup picks. We'll have more on that tomorrow night with the crew. Make sure to tune into youtube.com/the Action Network. Give us a comment. Let us know on this video over at youtube.com/the Action Network. Who do you like for the cup? What's your best bet? What's the best bet? What's the best bet you can come up with? We want to hear it over on our YouTube page. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to David Payne for producing, as well as Bridie Rubino and the video crew getting us up on YouTube. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.